Hello. Can y'all hear me? Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm Titcomb from Titcomb's Bookshop, and it is my great pleasure to introduce our author to you tonight. I want to say a big thank you, first of all, to the Riverview School for allowing us to use their beautiful auditorium tonight. And if you're not already familiar with the school, I just wanted to mention that they are world-renowned for their ability to provide neurodivergent students with exceptional academic, extracurricular, and social pursuits. I also want to thank Sandwich Community Television for broadcasting this event tonight for the folks who were not able to attend. You'll be able to watch it tomorrow on their website. A couple of housekeeping things first. Firstly, there will be time for questions from the audience after Vicki and Catherine chat. So don't be shy. We'll have a microphone and we can run to you so you can ask your question. And secondly, everybody has been assigned a group number for the signing line. This avoids congestion in the lobby and allows you to relax and wait so you don't have to wait in line as long. So just stay seated after the event if you would like to join the signing line and wait till your number is called. So Catherine Newman has written numerous columns, articles, and campaign recipes for magazines and newspapers, and her essays have been widely anthologized. She is the author of the novel We All Want Impossible Things, the memoirs Waiting for Birdie and Catastrophic Happiness, the middle grade novel One Mixed Up Night, and the best-selling children's books How to Be a Person and What Can I Say? She hails from Amherst, Massachusetts, and we are so grateful to have her here tonight to celebrate her book, Sandwich. Catherine will be in conversation with Vicki Titcomb of Titcomb's Bookshop, who says about the book, Sandwich is such a beautifully written, real, and heartfelt story of family life that had me laughing out loud and then absolutely moved to tears at the end. As the realities of young love, menopause, and aging all unfold, Rocky, Nick, and their young adult children are met with a boatload of love, humor, frustration, exasperation, secrets, and truths. Without further ado, please welcome Catherine Newman.
Thank you for that. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Ray and Vicki and everyone else from the bookshop and the school and all of you for being here. Just looking around a little, orienting myself. I'm seeing what you look like when you're awake in case you fall asleep later. That'll be my cue. I don't think we're going to fall asleep. Okay. Thrilled to be in Sandwich, and I'm going to read from Sandwich. Let me read a little. Is that good?
Yes.
I'm going to read the prologue, and then I'm going to read part of another chapter. I won't read for a long time. It's so comfortable here. I might read for a long time. All right. Picture this, a shore-lined peninsula jutting into the Atlantic Ocean. Zoom in a little closer. It's a Cape Cod beach town. It's midsummer. This is such a dream. The narrow highway is thick with lobster dinners and mini golf windmills and inflatable bagel pool floats. But turn off the main drag in either direction and find yourself quickly at the sea. Sandy cliffs and windswept grasses, tumbling pink roses, and vast blue skies, and a tide line hemmed with stones and mussels and bright green ruffles of seaweed. Beneath the waves, shivers of great white sharks, stuffed to the gills, or so one imagines, with surfers. In the passenger seat of one slightly rusting silver Subaru station wagon, a woman in her 50s. No woman in particular. She is halfway in age between her young adult children and her elderly parents. She is long married to a beautiful man who understands between 20 and 65% of everything she says. They've been coming here for so many years that there's a watercolor wash over all of it now. Everything hard has been smeared out into pleasant pastel memories of taffy, clam strips, and beach combing, sunglasses and sunscreen, and sandy feet pressed against her thighs and stomach. Little children running across the sand with their little pails, her own parents laughing in their beach chairs, shrinking inside their clothes as the years pass. Grief bright in the periphery, like a light flashing just out of view. The woman and her husband have fetched the grown children from the train station. They're headed to the small house they rent for this 1 week every year. She's so happy to have the kids with her that she doesn't know what to do with herself besides crane around to look at them and smile. It's the one moment of the trip when she won't complain about the traffic. And we are put on earth a little space that we may learn to bear the beams of love, she says, unprompted. Is that a poem, her 20-year-old daughter asks? It is. Who, the daughter asks. William Blake. What's it called? The woman grimaces. I think it might be called The Little Black Boy. Oh, Mom. I know. I think it's okay. I seriously doubt it's okay. I think he was an abolitionist, one of the abolitionists who enslaved people. That's a good question, the mother says. Is it beams like wood, the daughter asks, or beams like light in your eyes? I don't know. She has always pictured it both ways, squinting against the unbearable lightness of loving, while simultaneously crouched under the heavy cross of it. It's so crushingly beautiful being human, the mother sighs, and the daughter rolls her eyes and says, but also terrible and ridiculous, and maybe it's all three.
I think it's wonderful when an author reads their own words and we get to hear it. So that would be great. But I just wanted to say how excited I am to be here and to be able to talk with you. I just devoured it. I loved it. And
Louder,
just out of
louder, we
curiosity-
can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. How about that? I was wondering how many people have already read the book. I thought so. So those are great questions, I hope. And I'm sure you did the same thing. I just devoured this book. I loved it. I laughed out loud. I was so moved by it. I love the relationships in your book. And I love every one of the people in the book. They are wonderful. And I think there's an openness and honesty between them that I'm a New Englander, so like some of it's like, wow, how do you do that, Catherine? But I envy you in that too. But I wanted to congratulate you too, because the book just came out June 18th. It has already been 2 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list, and I know you. So congratulations on that. It's been a fabulous book, and it is so well received. And I also wanted to start off with a couple of reviews, because I think that they're so wonderful what everybody's saying about the book. And sometimes I feel like I don't have the words that are good enough, not being an author myself. But Maureen Corrigan from NPR's Fresh Air listed it as one of the 2 novels for the summer reading this year. And she wrote, I want books that glimmer like fireflies with dashes of humor and nostalgia. Sandwich is my idea of the perfect summer novel, shimmering and substantive. And the Los Angeles Times reviewer wrote that Sandwich has the pacing of a thriller, observations akin to poetry, and real-life conflict like a memoir. And finally, I had to give this review. Ann Patchett has spoken so highly of this book, and she listed it as one of 3 books for the summer, which is amazing because I know how many books come out. And she wrote that Sandwich is joy in book form. I laughed continuously, except for the parts that made me cry. Catherine Newman does a miraculous job reminding us all of the wonder there is to be found in life. And what wonderful praise. So again, congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. That was very decadent. But you should know that the book came out as number 13 on the Times bestseller list, and the Times only prints 1 through 10. My father was like, I looked for your book. You said it was a bestseller. I didn't see it. So, lest you think I haven't been deflated at various points.
I would like to know more about your father.
You probably already know plenty about him.
I heard that some of the scenes in the book have to be real, and I've got a couple I want to bring up in a while. But maybe to start, because your work, and across the board, I had the pleasure of reviewing some of your articles and your other amazing book, and many of you perhaps have read it. We all want impossible things. So far, but it is an absolutely poignant story that makes you laugh about two friends, one of whom is in hospice. And it is brilliant, and it's brilliantly written from the heart. But so because all this makes me want to know more about you. So can you tell us a little bit maybe about your growing up and your life, and how you became a writer?
Yes. I'm sorry. Every time there's a question like that, I think of if anyone saw the second season of White Lotus, where the Jennifer Coolidge character gets asked about how she got somewhere, and she says, well, when I was a small girl, and the guy she's talking to says, oh, you're starting from the very beginning. I was born. There are like some salient things. I grew up, my dad is a kid of Eastern European Jewish immigrants, and my mom was raised by malevolent nuns outside of London, and came to New York on a boat with the trunk of her things. My parents have almost nothing in common with each other except being madly in love. So that's what I grew up with then, being like that. And I really, honestly, my husband's here somewhere, but we were just with them for the weekend, and the whole time, and my dad now is always like, are you gonna write that down? And I'm like, maybe later. But I feel like that's they're kind of everything. They're very much at the heart of my psyche and way of being.
And family is.
Family, sure.
Yes.
Yeah. That wasn't really how I became a writer.
What did you decide to be a writer?
I thought that's going to be the road to riches. No, I'm kidding. My husband, Michael, where are you? Because I just want to know where you were. Oh, hi. My husband and I were grad students in California for 10 years, as one is when one is ill-advisedly pursuing a PhD for no reason. We both pursued these degrees like for decades. Like, I still can't believe we were young ever. It was like it just went on and on. And we were really broke. And a friend of mine was working in a magazine. I'd always loved writing, but writing a dissertation is like the thing that could make you love writing less, actually. And this friend of mine was like, hey, you want to write a piece for me about how to make birdhouses out of common household materials? I'll pay you $500. And I was like, you'll pay me to write? Like, here I was paying to write this horrible thing for years and years. And it was like a light bulb went off in my brain, and I became driven by a mercenary zeal that knew no limits. I would write anything for any amount of money for years until, like, this year. And I still actually mostly will write anything for money. It was like the zeal of the convert. Like, I could get paid to write stuff, and boy, did I. Like, I just wrote everything for money in the crassest, grossest way. And then I, tried to have some principles. And here I am.
Now, you wrote an etiquette column for 10 years.
I know. They never met me as something you should really understand about that column. They were never like at a table with me or in a room where I was swearing. But it was a great gig and I loved it. And the kids helped Michael. So Michael, I live with an ethicist, like by training, like a doctor of ethics lives in my house. And then my kids are just have these like moral compasses, less so now that they're older, but you know, when kids are young and they see everything so purely, where they can distill every question that came to us into its finest essence. And it was an amazing experience talking to everybody about all the questions in my column. It was actually spectacular.
Well, I read a few of them, and it goes along. You know, at first I thought, oh my gosh, I thought, really etiquette? But it's not etiquette.
It's like ethics.
And yes, it's ethics, and it's getting along.
Getting along,
Which is,
I know.
a theme that follows through all of your writing.
Thank you for tying it in.
It came slowly. I think it comes with reading what you write, you know, because on the surface you go, really?
It's really true. Every etiquette question is a question about relationships, right? About how to deal with the horrible, terrifying fact of people being different from you and wanting different things. Like, it's so obvious. It's the most basic fact about humanity, and it turns out to be so hard for people to take. So every question boils down to like, I can't stand that people are different from me. What do I do? Or I can't stand that people are different from me. Tell me I'm right. Those are the words. So it's like people's wind chimes and a person who revs their motorcycle and somebody's head you didn't like and the mother-in-law who doesn't let your kids sit at the table in their bikinis, whatever it is. It's all the same question.
Now tell us, if you would, especially for those who haven't read Sandwich Shack, could you tell us a little bit of what the story is about?
Yes. Well, it's sort of a trick because it seems like it's about a beach vacation, and it is. And I'm very aware of Charlie being here because there's someone I like a lot who interviewed me who wished it was more of a beach vacation. And it was sort of, why did I clutter it up with so much like gross and depressing stuff? Which is a question I ask myself constantly.
Life is messy. Life is messy.
So it's a beach vacation, and it's inspired by the glorious Keep Cod, where we are now and where we have vacationed every year since the kids were babies. And I wanted to do that thing of capturing all of the years. You know, if you vacation ever in the same place with kids and they grow up over those years, every year you remember the year before and the year before that, and all of the nested little kids inside your big kids. And I wanted to write about that. And then I wanted to cram into that story like a secret horror story that's about menopause and like reproductive mayhem. So that's like the terrifying underbelly of the Lovely Beach Vacation. Doesn't that sound like you want to read it? I'm sorry, I'm like pouring sweat. I feel like I'm like an ad for menopause.
But it's what gives the book that quality that makes you really want to read it. Like if it were any old beach read, it's so much more than that. And it's those relationships. Can you tell us about Rocky and Nick and their marriage? Maybe what inspired that?
What inspired that marriage? So Rocky is volatile and emotional and menopausal and very extravagantly kind of loving and emotional. And she's married to somebody who she's been married to for 30-something years, who is not like that. And it's the living, breathingness of a marriage. I mean, that's what I was hoping to write about, just the, oh, are we needing to do something? Oh, we've been warned. That flew by.
So, anyways, I think I love the contrast between the two and just this idea of a long-term relationship and two people, opposites often attract. And they're very opposite. I love some of your descriptions where she's like, get closer. And he's like, he can't move because he's so close that he's being squished basically by her love.
Yes.
I think that I can tell that you know the Cape, by the way, because that all rings true in this house and the love that this family has year after year. Like the kids are saying, like, well, why didn't they talk to us about the changes they made in the house? Because this is our vacation house.
We have had that experience of being offended when the people you rent the house from like do things without consulting with you about it. And we're like, we liked the old patio furniture. If you wouldn't mind.
One question I wondered, you write both fiction and nonfiction, memoir, and I heard you say something to the effect that you felt that you could be more honest in fiction. And I am so glad to meet you in person because I wanted to know if you could talk about what you meant about that. Do you feel like, and this is a novel, do you feel like you could be more honest? Yeah, how could you be more honest?
Yeah. I know that's an odd thing to say, but I really stand by it. I think in memoir, because the premise of memoir is that it's true, you have to be so protective of anybody who's not you in the book, and you end up writing relentlessly about yourself because that's really the only person you have full license to be revealing about. And fiction is fictional, and it's all made up, and you can say whatever you want because it's not about real people.
No, I get that. I love that. And that's so true. I would wonder, and you mentioned earlier somebody saying, oh, am I going to be your dad? You're going to put that in the book. And I'm sure the people around you would think that. But I could see where you could be more honest in a way by making things up.
Yeah.
And I also, I now have to click into it a little bit faster, but you laugh a lot. You do. And you find the funny in life.
Yeah.
And life has a lot of sorrow, life has a lot of difficulties, menopause isn't easy. I wondered if you know where that came from, that ability to look at the funny.
I mean, again, if I think about my parents, there's really distinct humor traditions in both of those cultures. I mean, the Jews are famously the people who are like fleeing, the Egyptians or whatever, and stop to like tell a really long joke, which I just love. Like that dark, like laughing, as a survival strategy. I feel like that is that tradition. And then I don't know, the British, I just said to my mom, like, the British people are funny, like Benny Hill. And she was like, oh, thank you for that. Like, it's not really the way she sees herself, but and yet there's a little of the Benny Hill, a little of like boob jokes or whatever, which is very British.
I have one very quick thing that you wrote, because I think your father had a lot of humor too. I don't know if this came from him, but the family's sitting around in the cottage, and so the father says, have you ever been angry, Nick? My dad asked him. I've known you for 30 years, and I don't think I've ever seen you angry. I've seen him angry, I say. I've made him angry. Well, you're the right tool for that job, my dad said, which is accurate. And then there was another time, I think he was talking about, I can share this too, that he thought he had COVID. Do you want to tell that?
I don't even need to read it. That's just a story I could tell you. Rocky's dad.
Rocky's dad. That's right.
Rocky's dad will say, because this is going on some sort of television program. Rocky's dad thinks he had COVID because one morning he had an egg and it was very plain tasting. And that was his only symptom. And by the afternoon, actually a little salt helped. And by afternoon he was fine.
And the daughter, Willa, who I adore, goes, "Oh my God, Grandpa." "Yes, Willa," he says. And she says, "Nothing. I'm just glad you recovered." Can you tell us about Willa, by the way? I love Willa and her relationship with her mom. And Willa is gay. And that is such a beautiful aspect of this book, I think, is the openness and between the two of them and the gift that she's given from her mom about them.
Yeah, Willa is the best. She's a lot like a person who lives in our house this summer.
She's so darn funny too.
She's very funny.
smart.
Yeah. I mean, all of Willa's lines were just lifted from our daughter shamelessly. Like, I just write down everything she says because she's so funny. And then she actually really likes to see it. She's like, "Who's the best character?" "I am." And she trolls Goodreads reviews for mentions of the character.
That's cute. Did she say this? Everybody knows the penny candy stores, remember? And okay, they're going to the penny candy store as 20-year-olds. And the brother, Willa's over there with a blow pop. And she comes out and she's like to her brother, "You can't let me do all the baby things by myself." I love that. Did she really do that?
I mean, that's the ongoing
It's
thing
just so
of
real,
siblings, right?
They've done this for years, and now they're growing up, and they're changing, and they're becoming adults. But there's still that part that still wants to do the baby things, and she calls it baby things. I loved it. So I think I have so many more questions for you, but we really want to allow time for all of you to have a question. And maybe can we turn the lights up a little bit? There we go. Hi, everybody. Great. And we have somebody with a microphone. Hey, everyone. Hi. So if you have a question, for Catherine, please raise your hand and everyone will come over.
I'd stand up, but I'm kind of a cripple. As a grandparent, I found your comment about teenagers in bikinis very, very appropriate. My question is, you mentioned the difference between memoirs and a novel. Isn't it fair to say that when you write a novel, there's a lot of you in it, although it's a novel?
Yes. That is totally fair to say. I mean, and conversely, when you write memoir, you connect a very particular set of dots to create a very specific picture, and you could have connected different dots. Like, even memoir is not just sort of transparently translating life onto the page. It's telling a story in a particular way. And then fiction it's a lot of, I mean, I think anything that feels true in something you read, however the fiction is written, even if it's fantasy, whatever the truth is in that is truth from experience. I think this has a little more real life in it than is strictly necessary. Thank you for that question.
Can you talk about the title, since we're here in Sandwich? But I don't think that's about the town.
So Sandwich is sort of the three-way, it's the sandwich generation, right, of a woman who's kind of in between living parents and semi-grown kids. So I wanted that, and Rocky makes a lot of sandwiches. It's something of an obsession of hers. She makes everyone sandwich for the beach every day and takes sandwich orders and is very diligent about making everyone sandwich to order and then being a little grumpy about it. And then Sandwich, where we are. So I liked that I could call it Sandwich and kind of capture a lot of things and without necessarily locating it in a single place on the Cape. It is kind of an amalgam of Cape Cod.
Were you thrilled? Did you think of the name for the book, or did that come from the publisher?
No, I thought of the name and they were like, we are not calling it Sandwich. That is not an optimized search term. And I was like, oh my God, you're so right. You Google Sandwich and it's 20 pages of Subway and then a book about making sandwiches, and then 10 pages later there's a novel called Sandwich. And I could really see that. I hadn't really thought about optimizing the search terms. And then without even really being a pain about it, they changed their mind. And I was so sad.
I think it's perfect. But, and I think you're going to change the algorithm if you haven't already.
Yeah.
It's going to come.
Where you're going to try to order a sandwich, it's just going to be my book, and you're going to be like, fine, I'll get it. We're not even that hungry. Yes. We're going to do it.
I listened to your book. I didn't read it. I listened to all my books, and I'm wondering why you didn't narrate it. Because to tell you the truth, I was not crazy about the narrator.
Were you not? I haven't
not.
listened to it,
I haven't
actually.
listened to it. I was going to ask you what you felt about the narrator, and you seem to be a much better narrator.
I think I narrated thank you for that. I narrated a memoir once. I think they like to leave it to the professionals to keep it maybe, I don't know what, from being too extravagant and campy. I don't really know. I don't know why. They didn't ask me if I wanted to narrate it, but I'm sorry to hear. I always hope it's good. So I'm sorry you didn't love that.
And I agree with you. I think you have a very good voice. It's distinctive. And it works. I hear it's very hard work, though, doing that. But
I mean, it's not hard work compared to other work. But sure. You get a little crick in your neck or whatever.
Well, over here. I wanted to know if you write from the seat of your pants, or do you write and plot everything out and
Is
have
this a joke
notebook?
question? Have you seen me talk about this before?
No, but I try to go to many author talks as possible. And
Are you a writer?
I was a teacher of English,
Okay.
so I read a lot of books.
Okay.
And maybe just talk about your process
yeah.
too, from beginning to winner.
I thought maybe you were a plant because I like to talk about this very thing. Because, so I'd read 100 million novels, but when I sat down to write my first novel, I was like, how do you write a novel? And then I was like, I don't know how to write a novel. What needs to be in a novel? Not only have I read 100 million novels, I taught fiction writing for 10 years, okay? I should know these things. But somehow became convinced I didn't. I bought this book that was called, and I keep meaning to look this up in between events where I like to mention it, but It's called either Take Off Your Pants or Put On Your Pants. One of those things means that you plot out the book before you write it, and one of them means that you don't. Writing by the seat of your pants means you don't plot it out. And this book was called Take Off Your Pants or Put On Your Pants. Anyway, never mind. It's this book. I can't tell you how ridiculous it was that I bought a book that was basically like writing for dummies. And it wasn't even really like a big definitive volume. It was like a 60-page long book about how to write a novel that I read in great earnest and like sticky tabbed it. I mean, Michael, you see this book lying around our house. I'm like, hang on, I gotta consult my like tarot cards. And it's this ridiculous, strange book. But I learned things about kind of constructing a novel. I mean, the trick is to construct it and then make all the construction disappear. Like, you don't want someone to read it and be like, oh, the anti-hero has appeared, or like whatever dumb like novel writing idea you have. But I think, so I do plot a little bit. Like I have a sense of the way the story's gonna go. And then I like to take myself by surprise and act like it's coming from outside of the house, the information that's coming to me. If you have a pet, you know this thing where like our cats will kick a stuffed mouse with their back foot and pretend it's alive. I have an idea and I pretend it came to me like from somewhere outside of myself, where I'll be walking and I'll be like, oh, I just learned something about my own character that I've made up. As if this information is like coming from anywhere other than my own brain. But it somehow feels very exciting to me to have this like idea that I didn't feel like I thought of. Anyways, all of which is to say that the novel it tends to go in directions that feel like it's of its own volition. Sorry. So I hope that was very helpful.
The vacation created kind of an arc.
Oh, I mean, 1 week. It's Saturday to Saturday. Yeah. That's a very useful, constraining time frame, right? Like, it means there's room for her to have a lot of memories because I'm not trying to move it forward in the book too far. And that was just to make my life a little easier.
Does that answer your question?
Please.
I've finished the book, so I'm going to be really careful on what I ask you. But I understand Rocky so much, listening to you. You have to be Rocky. I mean, it just resonates completely, but that's not my question. There's some certainly contemporary issues that are woven through the story, and I don't want to say too much about that for people that haven't read the book yet, but the characters came first, the issues came first, you made sure you got them into the characters. Just interested in knowing.
Thank you. The characters definitely came first, and the issues are organic in a way to the characters. So almost like the characters came with the issues, if you know what I mean, but it's definitely character driven. Thank you. I'm sorry. I know, we should have like a separate little thing that has spoilers. What? What's happening?
Hi, I've been reading, so you were talking about being a mercenary writer at the beginning, and I've been reading you since your blog in America.
Oh, gee.
So, like,
Okay.
in school, and I read your articles about arts and crafts, and I read,
You made a birdhouse out of a coconut?
I did. I didn't have time to do any of the things you wrote about, but they were all really great. But my question for you is this. So this is the first novel of yours that I'm reading, but I'll go back and read the others. And I am curious if there's any type of writing, because you've done so many different types of writing, if there's any type of writing that you turn to for relaxation or fun anymore, or do you feel driven by like what do I need to do next? Have you been able to let go of the mercenary piece?
Thank you. Yes, writing fiction. I wrote. Thank you for that question. The first novel I wrote with no sense of whether or not I'd be able to sell it. It wasn't under contract. I didn't have a deadline. And I had honestly never written like that before. I'd never written something that wasn't already sold. And that felt incredibly, a little scary and also just very freeing. Like I could just write it the way I wanted to write it. And it would either get bought or it wouldn't get bought, but I could just do it the way I wanted to. And that was amazing. And I still feel like that about the fiction. Like I can just write it the way I want to write it. And if they don't want it, I won't sell it before it's written. I won't sell it as an idea because I don't want to be stuck. I don't want to feel like I have to write it a particular way. And then it's incredibly liberating, honestly. I love it.
Do you still ever write blog entries just to get down your thoughts about your kids? No.
Oh my God, but I should. No. Thank you for asking that. I love it as a question.
Teamwork here.
Anticipation of the microphone around. So someone asked about process earlier. So what is your process? Are you someone that gets up early in the morning to write? Do you have set hours and then after that it gets shut off? Do you write longhand? Do you write on a computer or a typewriter? What's your process?
If I'm writing a novel, if I'm working on a long thing, that's a novel, I get up early and I take a walk because I read somewhere that that's the best way to get your brain started. And it actually is, to be totally honest. And then I drink like tons of coffee. And then I sit down and write at a computer, like with a cat in my lap, at the kitchen table for around 2 hours, and then I do the rest of my work, like the work that doesn't require quite that 2 hours of caffeinated mania. Thanks.
I'll just check. Do you have another novel that you're working on?
I think I do, yeah.
I hope so.
We'll see, won't we?
I also have a Substack. I'm really impressed you are way with it.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
What is Substack?
I've
It's
signed
like
up.
a newsletter.
I've signed up, and
You
so
did?
it's called Crone Sandwich.
It's called Crone Sandwich.
I love
Yes.
that. You don't put yourself as a crone, do you?
Yeah, I do. In the best way. I do think of myself as a crone. Yeah. That thing where, I don't know, I assume I'll get cronier. I don't think this is the pinnacle of my cronehood. But that thing where you get up and you look in the mirror and you're like, my God, like I feel like I could be hosting Hansel and Gretel. You know what I mean? Like that crazy feeling when you see yourself and your hair's all like gray and sticking up and you're like, that's how I feel. Like little kids are gonna come in the house and I'm gonna turn the oven on. Just to be funny.
Do you have other forms of art, mediums that you draw inspiration from?
The question is, are there other forms of art mediums that I draw inspiration from? Besides reading, is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay. This is not going to seem like an answer to that question, but we had this really weird conversation in our household, the four of us, Michael and me and the kids, and the kids wanted to know how much money someone would have to pay me to never go to another museum again as long as I lived. And these are kids who would agree to do that for no money at all. Like, they're just like, museums, why would you ever go? Okay, break my heart, whatever, I don't care. Don't never go to a museum. And I said, and I wasn't really thinking, I said $500,000. And the kids have never let me forget how ridiculous that was as a sum, because I literally have not been to a museum since identifying that as the amount of money that someone would need to pay me to never set foot in a museum again. So I don't really know. The answer is, I love art. Like, I love art in the, like, painting. We went to a museum when we were visiting my brother in Spain. We went to see this exhibit. Someone here is going to know who this is. Of this artist where he just painted these really drab still lifes over and over and over again. Do you know who this is? His name starts with an M. It's like 4 beige vases, and he painted them for decades. Like the same vases, and we went to an exhibit that was called like the blah 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 vases, and it was like hundreds of paintings of these incredibly dull vases. I have a little pocket mirror from the exhibit because I was so taken with it. But the way artists think about stuff, like that you would just return over and over to something in that way, is incredibly inspiring, almost more than like whether or not it's incredibly beautiful. Just the obsessiveness of artists, I love that. I absolutely love that. Let's end on that really weird. And if you have $500,000 and are hoping I'll never go to another museum again for whatever reason, let's talk about that. Thank you.
I have to invite you over to, say, the Horton Burgess Museum or the Glass Museum or St. Heritage.
Okay. I want to
We're
be
the museum
invited.
town, so I think we can break that.
Yeah, bring me around. Okay. Okay. Thank you.